Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Curran back from 4-H. Welcome back to my happy place. So today we are making seed bombs, which are the bomb. Haha, I know, crazy joke, Mrs. Curran. So anyways, today we are making seed bombs. The materials you are going to need are a couple sheets of newspaper and a piece of scrap paper, something that you've had writing on you don't want anymore. We're going to be recycling some things. Now you're going to tear the newspaper, maybe like 3 sheets. You're going to tear it into strips like this, and you're going to do the same thing with your scrap paper. So to tear it into strips, you pick up your pieces that you're going to use. So we're just going to use these right here, and you hold it, and then you tear it. And you just keep tearing it and tearing it and tearing it. And once you have it torn, then you start to tear it into smaller bits, okay? So I have my strainer, I have my big purple bowl, I have my newspaper, I have my scrap paper. I have what's left of my wildflower and my marigold seeds that we talked about before and used some of for other projects. I have some hot water out of my sink, not boiling water on the stove, but hot water from the sink. I have a piece of an old t-shirt that we've cut up that we're going to need. Always a good plan to have a towel in case you spill a little bit. And I have my blender. So those are the things we're going to need, and then finally we will also need a little something to put our seed bombs on to dry. So those are the materials we're going to need today, and these are something that we're going to let dry, and then we can put them outside. Kind of stops birds from going off with your seeds and kind of keeps them into little areas, and they sort of grow together. The newspaper is organic. It will turn back into soil, so it is fine to have in there, and to have your seeds will have a nice place for their roots to be. All right, so let's get going on this project. Okay everybody, now we're ready to put our things in the blender. So we have our pieces of newspaper and our scrap paper that we tore up into little tiny pieces. If you have a shredder, of course, it's a lot easier, but this isn't so bad. We don't need a whole lot. So this is a bowl that holds 2 cups. So I'm going to measure out just to make sure I have roughly the right amount in here. I don't want to get too crazy. Blenders don't like it when you overload them, especially with newspaper. So yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, it's a little over. I don't want to pack it down super tight. So I'm going to dump that into my blender. Pick up all the little spare pieces that are here. A couple left in here. All right, so loosely, you kind of see how that goes into your blender. And I'm packing it a little bit, but not a whole lot, because again, our blender doesn't really like that. So now I have really hot water that came out of my sink. I let it run for a little while, long enough to get it very, very hot. And I'm going to pour water, oops, and you're probably going to spill a little bit of water as well. And no problem, because just so happens I've got a little towel here that can take care of that. And pour until you're pretty much covered. And this should probably be enough. We're going to have a little bit of hot water when we get ready to actually run that through the blender, because sometimes it still needs a little more. We're going to drain off the extra water at the end, so it's not really a big deal. Just don't want to make it too hard on our blenders. So now, we put the top on this, and you let it sit there in the hot water for 10 minutes. And then we'll be ready to put it onto the blender base and get it all turned into pulp. Pulp is what they make paper out of, and we're actually kind of recycling paper right here. Okay guys, so it's been 10 minutes, and our paper and our water have all been soaking together. So now you put it on your blender. You can't just push it and think it's going to work, because it is newspaper and it might slow down your blender. So I find doing it in little pulses like this is really the best way to go. So I'm going to blend this, and when it's all blended, I'll come back. Our newspaper is all blended. It has turned into pulp, and it just kind of looks like paper soup right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our bowl, take your strainer, put it inside of your bowl, and then take that piece of t-shirt that we talked about and put down in the bottom. And that's going to stop the pieces of paper from getting all stuck up in the holes there. And it's going to help us drain. So, take our pulp, see, paper soup, pour it right into the middle of there. Some of that water is going to start to leak through there. I want to make sure we get all of our paper. Excellent. So, you notice the water is starting to come out of the bottom. Still looking like soup, but maybe a little bit more like stew than soup right now. So what we can do to help this drain a little bit is you take the edges of your shirt or whatever rag you're using, and you gather it all together, and you make it into a little pouch like this. You don't have anywhere there's any holes. You don't want the soup coming out of the holes. So then you twist it just a little bit, okay? We don't want to get too much of the water out yet, because we need to mix our seeds. So I'm going to walk over to my sink. I'm going to dump what's here. All right, so here we are with our soup in our little bowl here, and we're going to mix. Here's some of my wildflower seeds, and here's some marigold seeds. Now, we already measured out some before, so you don't want to overload this stuff usually, but I think that we have just about the right amount left in here. So maybe a teaspoon of the wildflower seeds and another teaspoon of the marigold seeds. And then you're going to just, you should use a spoon. I just use my finger. And you're going to mix it around so that those seeds are all mixed in with that paper pulp. Okay, they're mixed in. Now, we're going to pour our pulp with the seeds into our t-shirt lined strainer. And I'm going to watch the water just start coming out. You pick up all the edges when you're picking up the old t-shirt or whatever rag you're using. You got all the edges. You want to make sure you don't have anything squeezing out the top holes. So you put them in like that. And you want to squeeze out a lot of the water, but I found that if you squeeze out too much water, you can't get them to form into the balls that you want them to form into. So basically you want to squeeze it until it's not really dripping anymore, but you can still tell that there's quite a bit of water in there. So I'll lay this out on my towel now, and you can see what it looks like. So inside, our paper pulp and our seeds are kind of like a big hunk of clay. So first, make sure you get all your seeds off of your rag material. Now comes the fun part. So if you have, if you know somebody who makes candy, or you buy a candy mold or something like that, you can press these things into those molds and then turn them out and put them on something to dry. I have a cooling rack that I use when I bake, and I have that over just the extra newspaper I have there just in case there's any little drips left. So then all that's left to do is to take your paper pulp with the seeds in it and make it into a little seed bomb. So you can form these into shapes, sort of. They don't do a great job, but I was able to make some hearts. So you could experiment and do different things. Try not to squeeze too tight. You don't want to break the seeds. If you break the seeds, they won't grow no matter what you do. So try not to break them. You can make little circles. You can make little flat circles. You can make hearts. Sometimes I just did little mats like this so that they sort of spread out. And you just keep doing that until all of your paper pulp is into little tiny pieces. So then you let this sit for maybe a day, maybe 2 days till they're dry. And then they could sit around for a while until you're ready to plant. Let me show you the ones I did about 2 weeks ago. So I was practicing this so that I could do it with you. And these are the ones that I made a couple of weeks ago. So here's some of the ones that had just wildflowers in it. And these are some of the ones that had just marigold seeds. And you see my little heart that I made there. I did take several of these out earlier in the week and put them out in my yard in different areas. Warning, if you have chipmunks, they might find them and want to munch them up. But other than that, they should stay in one place pretty nicely. So I put the few here and a few there. We're going to see how they came up. Anywhere where you're going to have any flowers growing, it will help our pollinators. And that's the point. Besides it, they'll just look pretty. So I hope you have fun with the seed bombs. We're going to be making seed tape next. So keep your eye out, and the seed tape will be coming out next week. We are almost to the point where we can plant. Thank goodness. So seeds could go out now. We still want to be a little careful of plants. I don't know if you guys remember, we had snow just a couple weeks ago. We probably shouldn't have it again, but you just never know around here. So anyways, have fun with your seed bombs. Make a bunch. When you're ready, they can go out. It'll stop birds from carrying them off. It'll keep them in one spot and keep them nice and moist. And it's just a really fun way to plant. Have a great time, everybody.